Excuse me, good morning. We are first going to start by going over the word problems from Friday, and then we're going to review today and tomorrow and have a quiz on Wednesday. Okay, so on vectors, and then we'll move forward to our last kind of topic that I want to at least get you to see. So vectors, we've kind of hit the high points. It just kind of feels like a little choppy, if you will, but that's okay. So we'll review today and tomorrow, like do the odds today and the evens tomorrow, so that hopefully over the course of 2 days you'll kind of feel like we're putting it all together. Okay. All right. So number 3 says we have a vector of 32 with a magnitude of 0. So remember, 0 degrees means it's perfectly horizontal going to the right. 32 units, and then we have a magnitude of 67 and a direction of 160. So 160 is going to be very obtuse. That's probably not even enough. You know, this would be 160 degrees, and this would be 67 units. All right. Now, can I find the resultant the way that it is now? And the answer is no, because they're not tip to tail. So I'm going to redraw it where I slide. Ooh, that was bad. Where I slide the 160 this way. So the 32 stands put. The 67 vector in the 160 degrees direction has slid. And so now I can draw my resultant, which is going to be like here. Okay? So I'm going to find this angle, and I'm going to find this side length. Okay? Now remember, when I slide that 67 and the 160, I'm not using the 160 degrees. I need to find this angle right here, which is 20 degrees, because remember, those are a linear pair. This makes 180 degrees. Okay? So we need to ask ourselves, do we have a right triangle or do we not? So based on my drawing, it kind of looks like we do. Like perhaps it could be a right angle right here, but you know, that's not for certain. That's just kind of the way that my picture turned out. So we don't want to assume that it's a right angle. So if it's not a right angle, right triangle, we want to use the law of cosine or sine. In this case, because it's side angle side, we want to use the law of cosine, which is pretty much what we're going to use every time. And it asks us for the magnitude and direction. So we're going to find x first. So if you remember, the law of cosine goes like so. And then cosine of 20 degrees. And then we're going to have to take the square root when we're done typing, okay? I have my handheld that I'm just using. You can probably hear it clicking, but you know, you can also use Desmos. And we're rounding to the nearest whole number. It's 38.5, so that's going to round to 39 units. Okay, so we're going to put 39 here. And so now we're going to find the angle using the ones on either side of it first. You know, the other side of the angle we're looking for. Then minus the one that's across from it. Okay, and now we can just type that in. We get a negative decimal, and that's okay. So we're going to have to do second cosine second negative. (141 degrees). Now, you can tell that my picture's not drawn accurately because, so basically what that means is 141 is an obtuse angle. So it's really, the way that I could have drawn this picture better is this probably should have been a little longer, and then my resultant could have been like that, and then you would have seen that this angle was obtuse. Okay? So, you know, remember that a picture is just there to help you, but it's not always drawn accurately. Of course, when I draw it, it's typically not. So our answer is 39 units at 141 degrees. Okay? All right. So now we need to go to number 2. So we have 2 forces applied to some object, okay? So we have 2 forces being applied. One's 18, one's 36 pounds. Okay? The magnitude of the resultant is 27. So I cannot draw the resultant as it is here because it's not tip to tail. So I'm going to slide one of them. So I'm going to leave the 18 like so, and then I'm going to slide the 36 down here. Okay? Now I can draw my resultant like this, and it tells me that the resultant is 27. Sorry, I knew I was missing it. Okay. All right, now it's asking us, so we have it drawn correctly. We have tip to tail of the original vectors, and then we have our resultant being drawn. It says find the measurement of the angle between the resultant, so that's the pink one, and the vector of the 18. So we're looking for this angle right here. Okay, so it's not a right angle, so we're going to do law of cosine. So we're going to go like this. All right, so we're going to do the sides on either side of it first, and then the one across from it, and then 2 times each of those. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write out the decimals, so since I didn't have room to do that on the other one, so you can kind of make sure you're on the right track. All right, you should get negative 0.25. And so now we're going to do second cosine of that number. So that's the inverse cosine. And so theta is approximately 104 degrees. And again, according to my picture, that is not drawn well because that looks acute and our angle is obtuse. But that's okay. It's just there to help us. Okay? The hard part about these problems is there's not really a great way to check yourself or think through if that makes sense. I guess one way we could think through it is, this is 104, which is fairly large. It's across from the largest side, which is 336, so that kind of, seems like it should check out. Okay? So that's kind of my thought process there. All right, now let's look at the last one. All right, so it's very similar to the previous problem. We have 2 vectors, but we have the angle between them is 75. So 15 pounds and 10 pounds. And now when we slide it, we're going to slide that 75. So I'm going to leave the 15 where it is. I'm going to slide the 10 down here. Now obviously I'm kind of changing the let's do this appropriately instead of, let's add a page so I have a little bit more room. Okay, so I'm going to leave the 15 as it is. Ooh, how did I change that color? All right, and then I'm going to move the 10 this way. So my object is still here, but when I moved that 10, I also moved the 75, right? It's out here. So when I draw my resultant like this, I'm going to have to find this angle right here, which is 105. And the reason I know that is because I did 180 minus 75 in my head. Checked myself in the calculator just now. And now we can use these numbers. All right, so we have 15 pounds. We have our 10 pounds here. And now it asks for just the magnitude. It's not asking for the degree. So we need to find this. Okay, so we're going to go. It's not a right triangle, so I'm going to do the law of cosine. If it were a right triangle, we could do SOHCAHTOA or like the Pythagorean theorem, but we cannot do that. So all right. And then we need to take the square root of both sides. So then x is approximately 20 units, or 20 pounds in this case. Okay, so those are your 3 homework answers. Number 3 was finding magnitude and direction. Number 4 was just finding the direction. And number 5 was finding just the magnitude. Okay. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to review. Instead of just saying, boom, here's the review, y'all look at it and do it. I'm going to just quickly, because I feel like some of these problems have been a little hodgepodgey, if you will. That's just kind of how I feel about this unit in general anyway. But I was going to kind of give you a hint on them so that you could, feel okay about them. All right, so I'm only going to ask you to do the odds today. So Monday will be the odds. And then Tuesday will be the evens. Okay, and that way maybe if I can give you some feedback on the odds, then you can make those corrections on the evens, if that makes sense. Okay, that's kind of my rationale. All right, so I'm just going to kind of go through the directions and make sure you understand what I'm asking you for. All right, so number 1 says write the component form. So if you remember, component form is like this, so that's what your answer should look like. You could plot this on a graph if you wanted to, but there's an easier way. There's a formula where you do terminal minus initial. Okay, and then that'll help you come up with the component form. Okay. Number 5, number 4 you'll obviously do on tomorrow. Numbers 5 and 6, it says find an ordered pair to represent the vector x in each equation. So I'm giving you the component form, and I'm basically asking you to distribute, then add and subtract. That's really all you have to do. Okay, those should be fairly straightforward. All right, so numbers 7 through 10 was like the very first stuff we did, so it's been a while. These numbers are also pretty large. Looking back, I probably should make them a lot smaller. All right, so it says find the magnitude and direction. So the way that we did that, I'll go ahead and kind of draw out number 7 for you. So if we think about the components are going to help us know to find the direction, okay? So the way that you're going to find magnitude is using Pythagorean theorem. Okay, that's for magnitude. And then for direction, you're going to use sine. Okay? The reason that you can use SOHCAHTOA is because they will be right triangles. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of draw this one out for you. 12, 20, they're both positive, so that's going to be in quadrant 1. So that's 12 means to the right, 12 units. You know, I'm not going to draw all of them, but okay. 20 is like all the way up here. So it'd be something like that. So here is your vector right here. And you want to find the magnitude, so you want to figure out how long it is. You'll do Pythagorean theorem. And then for direction, you're going to find this little angle right here. Now, if it's in quadrant 1, you're done. If it's in quadrant 2, you have to think through. If it's in quadrants 2, 3, or 4, you have to do a little work. So let me refresh your memory here. So if it's in quadrant 1, theta prime, that's a Q. Theta prime equals theta. So you don't have to do anything. In quadrant 2, theta is going to equal 180 minus theta prime, if y'all remember this. If it's in quadrant 3, theta is going to equal 180 plus your theta prime, what you find. And then in quadrant 4, your theta is going to equal 360 minus your theta prime. Okay? So 7 should be the easiest one because you don't have to do much work after you find that angle. But 8, 9, and 10 will all be in different quadrants, okay? All right, numbers 11 and 12, it's basically so easy. You just take away the point, the pointy parentheses, and you put the I and the J with the appropriate numbers. Okay, so you're just rewriting it with I and J as opposed to vector form. Okay, so drop the comma and the pointy parentheses and put the I and the J with the appropriate numbers. Now, 13 and 14 are the ones students are going to have the most trouble with, in my opinion. So remember, a unit vector has to have a unit, a magnitude of 1. So you're going to find the magnitude, that's the first thing, of the current, like of 13 and 14. You'll find the magnitude using Pythagorean theorem. And then you're going to divide the vector, each component, with that magnitude. So if you remember, it's like you have to scale back the triangle, and if you scale back the hypotenuse, which is the magnitude, then you have to scale back the other ones. So basically 13 and 14 should look the same. V hat, it'll look like this, but it'll just have a number under here. Okay? That's what your final answer should look like. Then 15 and 17 and 19 are all like what we just have done recently. So I'll go ahead and tell you 15 is going to be a right triangle. So you can do SOHCAHTOA, Pythagorean theorem, either of those. 17 is not, so you'll have to do law of cosine. So this will be a right triangle. It's only one vector. So you want to start by going like this, and then your vector is going to be like that. Okay? Number 17 is you're going to have to do law of cosine. And the same thing for 19. 17 and 19 are very similar to what I just went over for your homework. Okay, and then 20, I guess we're not really going to have to do 20. Because there's no way I'm going to be able to draw that or assess that for you unless it's multiple choice. But if you can think through drawing those on Wednesday, drawing them, 1/2 V would just be going the same direction but half its length. So like that would be 1/2 V. Negative V is going to look the same. It's just going to go in the opposite direction. And then negative 3V would be 3 of them. Does that look to be about 3? And it's going in the opposite direction. So that's kind of how you would do that. All right, so I hope I have given you enough hints to help you get through the odds. If you just are completely lost on, certain problems, just let me know. I'll explain. I'll go through all of them. If I need to show the work for certain ones, I certainly can. But I'll have the odd answers for you tomorrow. All right, have a great day.